Hey everyone, I'm HotSauceZee, and today I want to discuss field of view, or FOV, once again. I mentioned in another video of mine about FOV that I wanted to discuss the differences between high FOV and low FOV, so today we'll do just that. I think the plan will be to run through some pros and cons of each, and then show some gameplay using the highest and lowest FOV settings available in Battlefield 5. I'll have that going in the background. So let's kick things off here with low FOV. In most Battlefield games, the lowest FOV setting is 50. This relates to the vertical component, which I won't go into in depth here, but if you're curious about the differences between Battlefield's FOV settings versus other games, then check out my other video, which I'll put a card for in the upper right corner. Okay, so with a low FOV, you'll notice a few things right off the bat. The most obvious one is that you will see less of the environment around you, especially to your left and right, and you will feel as if you are running more slowly whenever you sprint. The hit to your peripheral vision is the greatest con to rocking an ultra-low FOV. In fast-paced shooters, the limit that the low FOV puts on your peripheral vision can make it tricky to chain together kills and acquire your next target, because they are simply not even visible on your screen. You will have to rely solely on game sense and audio cues in order to keep a leg up on your opponent's whereabouts. There is another con to using a super low FOV. You're going to feel like your gun has a ton more recoil due to everything being up way closer. Listen closely though, this is only a visual change to recoil. Changing your FOV does not change the way a gun physically behaves within the game. All you're doing is changing the perspective on it. However, the visual component of the gun's behavior can have a pronounced effect on the way you try to manage a gun's recoil, so it is worth bringing up even though recoil values are not being changed at different FOVs. It's all in your perception of what's on screen. The third con to a low FOV is that targets will appear to move much more quickly on your screen. Your enemy's movements and strafing patterns will appear to be much faster than what they would at a higher FOV, which can in turn make them harder to pinpoint and track. Why does this happen? Well, think about it this way. If you were to watch a dog run across a park, first with just your eyes, and then second looking through a paper towel tube, you'll notice that looking through the tube or the lower FOV has a much faster feel to it. This is a simple comparison to what is happening in the game. These are all reasons you do not see many people playing at a super low FOV. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but they are of course rare. Low FOV sounds awful as there are many cons, but there is one big thing in the pro column. If you run a low FOV, then your targets will appear larger, as low FOV brings everything in closer. In my opinion though, the cons outweigh this one pro for using a low FOV, and I much prefer to run one a little higher. With that being said, let's switch over and take a look at a high FOV. The first thing you'll probably immediately notice is the fisheye or fishbowl effect. As the game tries to cram in more of the environment around you, things tend to start rounding out as you're essentially seeing more of the radius around you. This effect is usually even more pronounced when you begin to sprint or run within a game. The fisheye effect is the side effect of having a much greater view to your left and right, which has the benefit of giving you a far greater ability to see targets around you. This will allow you to chain together kills more easily because you'll know where to move your crosshair next, as more opponents will be visible on the screen. This will also allow you to better avoid danger that may not be immediately in front of you. High FOV is also going to change the way that sprinting or running feels within a game. It will appear on your screen as if you are running much faster than you were with a low FOV. You'll feel almost like you're jumping to light speed. This is because the game is showing you so much more of what is around you, and any movement is changing a far greater amount of vision than it was before. The visual perception of the way your weapon handles will also be affected with high FOV. The wider your field of view, the less your gun is going to appear to kick up due to recoil. Again, just like with low FOV, the actual recoil values of the weapon itself are not changing when you switch your FOV up. What you experience is a change in your perception of the same constant recoil values that are built into the game's gunplay. It's for this reason that recoil feels much more manageable the higher your FOV value is set. You know how I said you will appear to be sprinting more quickly with a high FOV? Well, The opposite is true for your enemies and your targets. Their strafing, sprinting, and movements will appear much slower compared to what they were in the low FOV situation. Think again of our example with the dog and the paper towel tube. This has the benefit of making targets easier to track as their movements are not perceived to be as quick. You're probably thinking, man, Hot Sauce, high FOV sounds like the shiz. Why the hell doesn't everyone just max it out? Well, there is one major downside to running a maxed FOV. Since you're seeing so much more around you, all of your targets are going to appear much, much smaller. In games with bad visibility, this can be a huge issue because it then becomes much more difficult to distinguish enemies from the environment, especially if they're stationary. On top of that, if you are not the most precise player, then smaller targets are of course more difficult to hit as there is less of them visible to aim at. There is also another issue with high FOV that can be a problem if you're running a lower end or older PC, and it's also the reason that console games often completely omit an FOV setting or slider in the first place. High FOV settings are more taxing on your system as the game is having to render much more of the environment around you, which demands much more resources. So keep this in mind before you max things out completely, as you may begin to notice performance issues like frame drops, which aren't worth the extra few degrees of view. So as you can see, there is of course a balancing act between high and low FOVs, and which one is best, as there are pros and cons to both. It is my opinion, though, that a higher FOV setting outpaces a low one slightly. You feel like you move faster, recoil feels more manageable, your targets feel as if they are moving more slowly, and the only major con is that your targets get smaller. I personally run my FOV at around 106 for a 16:9 aspect ratio because I don't like the pronounced fishbowl effect and tiny targets of a maxed FOV, so I turn it down just a few notches to eliminate those for the most part. That being said, just because that's my preference doesn't necessarily mean it's yours as well. Take the information you learned here and try a few games on different FOVs to see which one you like more. Since everything is just visual and perception changes, you won't be putting yourself at any disadvantages as far as the game goes. Use that knowledge to find the setting that you enjoy the most visually and that you feel fits your playstyle. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video, and I hope that it answered some questions you had about the different FOV settings. If you did find it helpful, then please click the like button for me, as the engagement is great for the channel and continued growth and exposure. If you enjoy these kinds of videos and FPS games in general, then I also encourage you to click subscribe down below or at the end so that you won't miss future uploads. That'll wrap this one up. I'm HotSauceZee, and I look forward to seeing y'all for the next video or out there on a server somewhere. Take care.